Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Copeland Coins live stream. I'm Caleb, and today we are talking all about when is it the right time to go pro, going pro as a magician. And here to talk with us about that is the man himself, Mr. Rooster. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey man, how you doing? Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good, good.
Good.
All the way from Brighton in the UK. Is that right?
Yeah, and it is bright. It is very bright today. It's about 30 degrees, something like that, which degrees Celsius, which for us is hot. Um, yeah, this is our Cuba weather. So,
There you
yeah.
go. That's awesome. That's all I see. I see the beach shirt, so you're ready to go, man. That's awesome.
Yep, Hawaiian shirts come out as soon as it gets to June. Hawaiian
Well, we
shirts
have
are it.
a yeah, for sure. Well, we have a very exciting topic today about being pro, what that means, what that is, how that can be. And I figured it'd be a fun discussion. And if anybody has any comments about that, or you are a pro, you want to let us know any insights, put that in the comments as we go. We just had a couple things to talk about in regards to this if you're interested in being pro. Right. So first off, what does that even mean? I know people are going to be asking that. What do you think that means, Rooster, to you?
It's weird, right? Because I think obviously people categorize magic like or anything really as a hobbyist, semi-professional, and then a professional, right? So I think if you're if you're a hobbyist, you're learning, you're going out there, but that doesn't mean that you can't, do the odd gig here and there. But it is just a hobby, right? Essentially, you're not looking to make a living out of it. And then semi-professional, you're getting into that terrain of putting yourself out there, maybe making a website, maybe getting a residency, and starting to build. One thing that I think is probably the key fundamental for becoming professional or starting a business is building a client base, right? So that's like a big thing. You start semi-professionally, you maybe don't charge as much as you would but as a professional, but you're sort of climbing that ladder. And then when I consider being professional when you can deliver the value that you claim to deliver at a certain price point, right? So for me, that like a lot of people think if you give up you've got to give up your day job to become professional. You've got to give up doing everything else. I would urge you never to give up whatever you're doing, even when you become a professional entertainer or performer or whatever it is you're doing, because you need something to balance that life, right? That work. So yeah, I would consider that giving the right amount of value at a price point that you consider, a high standard, really.
Sure, sure. That's interesting. And the reason I bring it up is because I've heard over the years different guys talk about uh, being pro as either like a question of money or maybe a question of attitude and approach. Because
Hmm.
you can approach your magic as a pro, like just in the way that as an artist would approach, like, I'm going to be professional about this. I'm going to really figure this out and not even be paid, right? That's just
Hmm.
how you approach it. So you're like coming at it from a pro's perspective. Um,
Yeah,
or you could think about it as like you're saying, like how you're earning your living, that kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, obviously, like there's two different types. If you're gonna be a professional entertainer, as in you want to make a living out of that job, out of whatever you're doing, then there's different ways to look at how you're then practicing your effects and getting them to a certain level. But again, like as you say, even if you're a hobbyist, you could suddenly have just a mindset change of thinking, well, actually I want to think of how this would really work in the real world, and what am I going to strip back, what can I add to things to make them seem really workable,
100%.
so yeah.
Now I'm curious, how long have you been pro?
Oh man. So this is tricky. So I did my first gig when I was 11, right? So my first
Last
paid gig.
year. Oh,
Sorry. Yeah,
so last.
last year. Yeah, last year when I turned 11. I'm 12 this year. Last year. What?
You look so young, man. Not in a bad way.
No, man, no. That's just plastic surgery. Um, I, yeah. So it was for a friend's auntie's birthday, and I got paid £50, which for an 11-year-old was a lot of money at the time. It still
Awesome.
is a lot of money, to be fair.
Yeah.
And and so that's when I started to like start doing the odd gig here and there, and do bits like that. But I think getting into my sort of mid-teens, maybe 16, 17, 18, I started like approaching larger venues and larger corporate client bases and getting a website together. That was the main thing. A website is a must if you are becoming a professional, becoming want to market and sell yourself. So
Definitely
yeah,
true.
around that age. So I'm 32 now. So yeah, you
Wow.
do the math. I
That's
can't.
fantastic. Okay, cool. So you got it. This is perfect. No, so it's good. We're
Yeah.
talking to somebody with some experience in this. That's definitely so. Like I said, guys, if you have questions, put those in the comments. It's a good opportunity. Let me take a second and say hi to a few people here. Matthew, good to see you. He always says ahoy.
Ahoy,
So
hoy. Ahoy,
and,
hoy.
Shiloh, howdy, good to see you. Now, Service is kind of a newer addition here, and he's talking about he is a beginner magician with coins. So, welcome, Service. This is going to be a good opportunity to ask any questions you have about being a professional magician, because that is the topic for today. So,
Yes.
um, as we talked about already, that is kind of the idea of what it means to be a pro. You know, you can kind of approach it in a couple different ways, but um, a big topic is, you said that you started being pro quite a long time ago.
Mm.
How do you know when it's right for you? And there's a lot of different approaches to this, but I'd like
Yeah.
to hear what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah. So apologies. I'm sweating out here. I don't have aircon over here in the UK. It's very, very warm.
You're good.
And studio lights. So I apologize. I'm sweating out. The what are my thoughts? Uh I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go pro. I don't think there's like everyone has to have a set up thing. Like I say, like the thing with the client base, it's sort of helpful. It's one of those things that will get you more work. It'll get you a sort of regular work. But I think most people are just scared to take the plunge, whether that be putting your prices up, whether that be making inquiries. Because sometimes, like if you're starting out, you need to do a bit of cold calling and maybe get a residency. Residencies are a big thing. Get a residency and start going out there and making your finding your sort of niche in the market, finding out where you can work. So yeah.
Real, real
I'd
quick.
say yeah.
No, real
Go on.
quick there. I just want to define a couple terms here because that was fantastic. So when he's talking niche, you're talking specifically your niche in the market. What can you do as a magician, or what do you offer that's maybe different from other magicians? What kind of magic do you do? What's your personality? That kind of thing, right? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, that, but also whether it's weddings or corporate events or private parties, you sort of find like where your best fit is. Like you might start off like I'd always suggest targeting your local area first, because then you don't have to travel loads and you can sort of target people within that sort of community, right? And they get to know you. Um, but yeah, I'd suggest looking at just sort of what sort of markets you like. I don't tend to do as many weddings anymore. I tend to do more corporate stuff, but I do the odd wedding here or there. But it's just my main market is the corporate market, so that's where I tend to go. But again, probably same with you, Caleb. Like you probably do one more than the other, right? IP
Sure,
performing. So
sure, sure.
yeah, it's just sort of find out what's good in your area, and I'd start from there.
It's gonna depend, like you're saying, it's gonna depend on, where you live and what you're doing too, because,
Yeah.
uh, like I know from, talking with you and my UK buddies, it's like
Mm.
you guys have this almost cultural thing where like having a magician at a wedding is almost just normal commonplace, right? Like very
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is and it isn't. I think. I mean, magicians, entertainment in general is always generally thought of as an afterthought, right? It's an afterthought for people. So um, you still have to convey your value and what you can bring to people. So
sure.
uh, yeah. I would. It's still a struggle to sort of do that sometimes, but it is probably more common here than it is in the US, probably.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So we do weddings here. I perform at weddings periodically,
Mm.
but it's more of like a lot of times it'll be a situation where it's like the bride and the groom love magic or
Yeah.
they saw me do something else and they're like, "We gotta have you at your that kinda thing. Uh, Not just like,
That's
"Okay, we
good.
got the caterer, we got the wedding planner, where's the magician? We need a magician," that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's sort of yeah, because like DJs and bands, that's already a thing, right? That's the main event. So when you end up with sort of a magician, it's almost like an add-on. Sometimes it feels, but our
Mhm.
job is to make them see that it is a necessity to
Yes.
have at an event. So
And
yeah,
that's part of the business thing, 'cause that's important. We're actually gonna get to that in a second about what's kind of involved when you're starting to think about, being professional, but I
yeah,
I do have a question here I wanna address here from Matthew. He's talking
mm,
about, what's an appropriate venue for a serious hobbyist that wants to perform the very occasional gig just for fun, like a bar, and, what I wanna point out is Rue said earlier, he said I think he said did you say residency? I think you said that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that's a term I had to learn a couple years ago. I was like, "What is residency?" But
mm,
residency is just a good term for a regular gig that's happening over and over, right? Whether that's monthly, weekly, biweekly,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like some people call it like an in-house magician or an in-house performer. Yeah, I did quite a few of those starting up, but it's harder to find now. But yeah, again, it was one of those things that I just did free because I would get more work from it. So um, yeah, but
Yeah.
just for the question, what was that? What is the appropriate venue for a serious hobbyist performer? Uh, yeah, bars are fine. Bars are good. Like, I mean, if that's your sort of thing, like restaurants are very good as well. If you can find a restaurant, again, it's probably a different. It's probably different in the US than it is here in the UK. Like restaurants tend to be more of a thing, like for magicians to have residencies in. But bars work as well. Bars are cool. Anything where people are drinking, hanging out, laid back, and you can sort of practice your skill set. Um, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying too, that's I'm glad we were able to distinguish between the residency gig or the restaurant gig and
Yes.
what you're talking about, Matthew, because
Yeah.
if you had a restaurant, it wouldn't be like the very occasional just for fun kind of thing. It would be like, "Hey, I'm looking to do regular. I'm working out my routines. I'm trying to be there like every whatever Thursday and like,
Yeah.
work on stuff."
Mm.
When you're talking about just a fun gig, I think that's a good point. Like a bar, if you
Yeah.
go out with friends and you start doing a little something fun for them, and maybe somebody else goes, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" And you bring this guy over, or you go over
Mhm.
there. All of a sudden, you're just doing stuff for fun.
Yeah.
And you're, working stuff out.
Yeah. I think it's definitely anywhere that you can just sort of relax and be yourself is a good place to start. So if you're
Yeah.
happy doing it at a bar, do it at a bar.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other places that are, like, obviously, like, volunteering for, community festival type things,
Yep.
really good opportunity to go out there and just perform for a bunch of people because everybody's just hanging out,
Mhm.
Um, sometimes, like, retirement home type situations are interested in having
Yeah.
entertainment, you know?
Yeah. Retirement homes are great. Yeah, like music festivals, sort of community things, like as you say. Yeah, all those are good places to sort of look into as you're starting out.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then there's another little tip that, I talked about in, like, a live stream, like, months and months ago. When I was starting to put together a show is creating your own venue, which was like call up all my buddies and friends and say, "Hey, do you guys have like a group of friends that you could like invite over to your house and then like I could come do a show for you guys like on me
Mm.
just for fun?" And then I would set up like 2 or 3, 4 different shows. So like my friends would know a bunch of friends and then they would bring their friends to their house and I would just show up and do a show. Or
That's cool. That's
my
cool.
friends and their church group, and they would, like, have a little church in at the church, and I would just show up
Mm.
and do a little show for them just to practice.
Yeah, of course. I think yeah, that sort of like creating your own sort of engagement is always a good thing. Like, especially when it comes to um, just getting word out, word of mouth, because word of mouth always helps when you're starting out. So yeah,
100%,
it's a very good
100%.
idea.
So we got another question here from, this is my buddy Chris, actually. What's up, Chris? Um, any tips on doing or going from just doing tricks to something more on par with a polished professional show? And I don't know if he's meaning, like, connecting, the tricks together into a polished show. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, taking it's tricky, isn't it? Like I'd always I always sort of split my set. So I have like a set for walk around, a set for tables and that sort of thing. So all the sets that I do for like stand up, I sort of link together. All the effects I do, sorry, and all the stuff I do for tables, they're all linked together as well. So very much that idea of just literally writing out all the tricks you know, and then sort of almost seeing it like a story, where you want the beginning, where you want the middle, and where you want the end. It's the same with any stage show as well, you know, beginning, middle, end. And yeah, I'd say give that a go.
Yeah, and I've seen guys, so I've seen it work both ways, I guess. I like just as an encouragement to Chris and anybody out there that's interested in connecting their stuff together for like a polished show. I've
Mm.
seen it work where like a performer will have like a drop box on stage. And just a quick tip that's really good is if you're looking for like to carry your props, a lot of guys will carry like the briefcase on a table. That can work, but
Yep.
also they sell like those little boxes. I don't know if you guys have those in the UK. You seen those fabric boxes that pop open and sit in a shelf?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like
Those
from
are
IKEA or something.
yeah, from IKEA. Those are super handy because they're like you can get black ones and they kind of like don't even really, stand out. And then you put all
Yeah,
your stuff in there and they fold up easy. It's just really nice.
that's cool. That's cool.
But I've
I
seen
had a
performers work out of those and not even really have transitions in between the routine. It's kind of like we do an effect and everybody's applauding and clapping. They go back to that box and they pull out the next thing and they do that.
mm,
So it can work.
yeah.
But,
I
you
mean that
won't.
that for me is sort of like a parlor show, right? That's like
Yeah.
a parlor show setup. But yeah, man, I remember you know DMC
Oh, yeah.
drummers. Yeah,
Yeah.
he
From
I've
Death by Magic, that TV show.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've worked with him a couple of times, and obviously he's well known for carrying around that doctor's
Yeah.
medical bag, right? That's his thing. Um, but man, it's still cool. I mean, they're bloody hard to find those things over
Sure.
here. But yeah, like he's yeah, that all those little things people remember, right? As well, like
Sure.
whatever you turn up with to a venue, whatever you turn up with to a gig. Um, I mean, that's part of the character. That's part of his character, right? And I
Sure.
think that's another big point turning professional as well is having that character almost good to go, right? It's you've worked up, you know who you are, you know who you can how you can sort of pitch yourself to people. So
Well, you're
yeah.
talking about, being pro and thinking about, your overarching value,
Mm,
to the client. And that's why yeah, I want to keep addressing this question here is because this is a good thought of like, okay, I don't want to just do tricks anymore. How do I connect them and make it like an actual thing I'm presenting? And I think another just real quick tip on how to do that is we've mentioned before about this idea from Larry Jennings, like how are you getting into the effect and how are you getting out?
mm,
Um, and a lot of times that's just like a hook, right? Like you have one line at the start of a trick. I think I remember one of the tricks on the was it Okito fly or was it brass class where you have the I think it was Okito fly where you're talking about toast is not toast, it's just cooked
yeah,
bread or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it was the idea of I like questions that don't make any I like things that don't make any sense. Like toast isn't really toast; it's just warm, crispy bread, right? It's not a thing. Yeah,
See, I remember that, like, I never forgot that hook, and that was
yeah.
started the trick that you were about to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, I think, yeah, that's
But
a
by
good
using
memory.
those hooks in a show, it's almost like you don't it's not like start, stop, start trick, stop trick, start trick. It's like start a trick with a hook and a story, and then all of a sudden you go, "Oh, and by the way, you ever had a question that doesn't make sense?" And this kind of thing. It's like you're
Yeah,
telling a story with these little guideposts.
yeah. And I mean, a big thing for me was watching stand-up comedians and actors, right? Because
Mhm.
that's where you learn those kind of improvisational techniques or those ways to get in and out of stuff. Because magicians we do magic tricks.
Mhm.
That's what we know, right? But to get everything else in place, it's you have to study other people, whether that be acting or other stagecraft. Bless up Matthew, Akito Fly Rules. Thank you, man. Uh, but yeah, like studying other people's crafts in performing is like a key thing to bettering yourself, I think. And again, that's all going to help you get to a higher standard.
course, of course, of course. Well, before we move on to the next little part of our topic, we got another question. Keep the questions coming. These are great. Service says, I know that to be a pro requires a lot of hard work. I have a lot of motivation to learn, but my time to do so is not very much. So, any tips how I can improve my skills when I don't have a lot of time? Um,
Mm, time
and
management question.
time,
That, that, I mean,
that's a pro question.
mate, that's pretty much how I live my life. I live my life. You know, we all live our lives by time. It's always people say become self-employed. You know, it's a business, but you're always on someone else's time when you're self-employed. Really.
Mhm.
So finding it's going to be obviously it's going to be specific for you. So finding time to practice is going to be the big one. You know, whether you're at a stage of being competent enough to go out and gig, or whether that just be in general, like you always have to remain practicing, whether that be like in an office, sat down, or you know, doing whatever, you know, just fiddling with a little deck of cards here and there, or whatnot. Um, but actually taking the time out to do things like make a website and all that sort of stuff is going to take one probably a little bit more of a push, right? It's going to take you to sort of have to go, right, I actually need to set this time aside to do that, or I need to pay someone to do that for me. That's the other thing, you know, if you've got the money and you can do it, delegate what you can to somebody else, because that's going to save you a lot of time. Same with marketing, things like Google AdWords and, you know, all that sort of stuff for being able to promote and um, anything like that. It's always worth having someone else helping you with that if you can.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And there was 2 things that I thought of that, came to mind to help you with this service too is, one, something I learned from Michael Close a long time ago, I read somewhere, was he's talking about every magician has, like, a fiddle move, right? When you get handed a deck of cards or a coin or something, every magician has their thing they're doing. Whenever I have, like, a small object, I don't know if you can see, but I'm always just doing, like, a fake take with a ring kinda thing, just fiddling, not even looking at it, just doing this thing. And he said, "Change your fiddle move to whatever move you wanna practice and work on, because you're gonna do
Yeah.
that fiddle thing over and over and over and over. If you're at work and you're, like, on the phone and you have to, like, talk to somebody, you could just have, like, you could even not even have the prop, but just be miming, what you're gonna do over and over mindlessly, so you're developing muscle memory, I'm not trying to say don't not do your work and get in trouble, but I'm just saying, you know,
And you know
there's
what? People are going to look at you weird.
they
People
are.
are going to look at you strangely. I remember I used to have a friend called Marcus. He works. He's a very, very good magician. But when I started hanging out with him in London, he used to practice the muscle pass, and he used to be able to muscle pass a penny. He got it so good he
What?
can muscle pass a penny, right? Tiny penny, so about the size of a dime. Um, but he would do this on the tube,
Oh, yeah,
right?
'cause the penny your penny is smaller than our penny. Your penny is like our
Yeah,
dime.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Tiny, tiny. So he used to be able to do that. But he used to practice his muscle pass on the tube, and I just used to be sitting there with my head in my hands watching him do it
The
because
tube is like the
inevitably,
subway?
yeah, 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 the underground, yeah.
Gotcha.
So he'd practice the muscle pass, and inevitably it would drop and roll down the length of the carriage. So, and that would happen repeatedly, you know. And I mean, he had no shame. He had no shame. Like I just wouldn't do it, but he just loved fiddling and practicing, and he'd just do it out in the open, you know.
That's
Um,
funny.
but
That's
yeah,
funny. The other tip I was gonna give you real quick service before we move on to the next part is, that what we talked about earlier, the restaurant gig. If you were to have an opportunity to get a restaurant gig, having you really only need, like, what, 4 tricks to work a restaurant gig. And then every other trick that you put in, like, let's say you have something is really good and something it's really good at the end, the middle one, you can put in something new. And if you do that, like, let's just say you work a restaurant gig 1 night a week for, like, 2 or 3 hours, you're gonna hit maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 tables in that time, at least, probably. You're gonna get, like, all that opportunity to practice that new thing in front of real people, and you'll have it worked out very quickly. That's why restaurant gigs are so great because you can always work out material super quick, and learn what
yeah.
works.
And I mean, just like case in point, like I know a lot of big magicians. Like if I said their names, you would know them, right? But I know they still do the same 4 gigs that they've been doing since the 70s. Same 4 tricks, sorry, and that's on repeat. Like some of them haven't even changed their sets since the 70s. So personally, I never want to do that. I need to keep it fresh. But
Yep.
that just goes to show, like, you can make a living just doing the four same tricks over and over again.
You can. But you say you keep it fresh, but you've done your tricks for a lot of people, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not doing
oh
one
yeah,
trick
yeah,
for one group and then, like, retiring it, you know?
yeah. It's always fresh for other people, unless you do a residency. So residencies are where it is tricky because then you have to keep it fresh for the punters that come back, right?
Right. Right.
So which gives you the motivation to change your setup,
True.
which is great. But yeah, like you could happily just do the same four tricks again. Uh,
Funny.
well, maybe not happily, but you could do.
Well, it depends on how good you are, I guess.
Yeah,
If you get the copper silver, man, you can happily.
yeah, happily do that. Yeah, yeah.
Um, real quick, I wanna mention a little bit about we got a couple more minutes here. What's a little bit of involved in the business side of things? We talked about it being a business, and we've always heard that, that cliche of, like, show business, and the word business is bigger than the word show, so you should put more time in the business than you do in the show. Um,
Yeah. Unless you
any
abbreviate
thoughts?
it to showbiz, and then you're
I haven't heard that, that's good, I like that.
yeah. Just call it showbiz, man. You can just get dressed up and start doing jazz hands, and that's it. Forget about the
Oh,
business.
no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Any thoughts?
it is tricky because you do have to go from being a hobbyist magician to right. I've got to try and make some money out of what I'm doing, right? And whether that be investing in things like Google AdWords and stuff like that. I've done Google AdWords a couple of times, but the main thing is like with a website. Website is every client's touch point for you, right? Social media is a touch point. So everything you put up on social media, everything you put up on your website has to reflect you. Um, and if you're getting an inquiry, if you get an inquiry through, that client is already 95% of the way to booking you, right? There's already, like, if they've clicked on your website and they filled out a submission form and they sent it through to you, they've already liked what they've seen, right? So it's just your sort of thing. Like, all you have to do is just tap it over the net, right? That's all you have to do is just get that home run. So um, it's that little last bit that a lot of performers fail on. It's
Mhm.
that little last bit. It's everything just sort of, if you can get as many inquiries as you like, but if you don't know how to, like, build that rapport with the client, then you lose the gig, right? It's as simple as that. But yeah, building a website is my number one first step for
I
sure.
like it. I like it, and that's another
And
interesting thing
content,
because
yeah.
you said content?
Yeah, kind of like videos, pictures, like do a few free gigs, or get a photographer down to your residency, or just to follow you around and do some stuff so that you have images and videos to put up on your website, because that's what they want to see. That's what people want to see.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, and I think that's another. It's a thing you're just gonna start running into if you start doing this and you want to do it professionally.
Mm.
You do some great magic, and sometimes people will just automatically go, "Oh, do you have a card?"
Yeah.
Now, this is a very interesting moment when they say, "Do you have a card?" Because that means either they're interested in booking you. They might be saying that because they don't like you. That's possible. That's possible.
Hmm.
But we're gonna assume that's not the case, okay? We're gonna assume because sometimes people tip you so that you'll leave, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a reality, but we're gonna assume that you did an awesome job, and I'm not talking about you, Rooster, I'm just talking about anybody.
Mate, that's daily occurrence. People just pay me money to get them out of their lives, basically.
No, 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 no. I'm just saying anyone in general. We'll assume that they did a great job, and somebody goes, "Do you have a card?" And now you could have a card. I like what you're saying about definitely have a website because then at least you can direct them to the website where they can, potentially get in contact with you to book you.
Mm.
But also a really good tip I got from someone a long time ago is make sure you get their contact information. If
Mm.
possible, get
Yeah.
their contact information because
There's
then you can follow up, right?
Yeah, there's a few effects out there that allow you to do that as well. The
Mhm,
actual magic tricks that allow you to exchange information or get people following you on social media and all that sort of stuff, which is great.
mhm.
There's a card that you guys have in the US as well that I think it's called Tappy, or a Tappy card, where you can literally tap someone's phone and the QR will pop up and it will give you all of your, like, websites, Instagrams, all of that on their phone.
Ah, yeah.
Um, which we don't get that over here, but I keep getting bombarded with Instagram advertisements for it because I'm clearly looking at it, or I've mentioned it. And
Yeah.
after this, I'll definitely get a load more on my phone now.
I won't say it, but I knew I would say I won't say the name
He's
of the brand.
listening, man. He's listening. But yeah, like that. I think that's great, just to be able to have a card and just tap it on their phone, and everything is on their phone.
It's
But
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
There's all
I
sorts
think.
of yeah.
Sorry, go.
I was gonna say there's all sorts of like for instance, when I do, an event, so, like, I'll have, like, a poster, to let
Hmm.
for advertisement, let people know, and on the poster is a QR code,
Yeah.
and that's a QR code I made for my website, so when people go, "What is
Mm,
this?" They scan it, they're on my website, you know what I mean? Like,
mm.
without me having to say, "Type in this," and people go, "What? How do you spell this?" QR code, they're on the website, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean that I'm just going to touch on one just brief thing here. We have something over in the UK. I don't know if you have it in the US called wedding fairs, right?
Just in general?
FAYRES, right?
Okay.
Not an actual fair, but it's fairs. But yeah, it's essentially where you can go. Like if you're if you've got something to sell for a wedding, whether you be selling flowers or entertainment or whatever, you can set that up. So if you probably have that in other countries as well, maybe. But normally that's where people who have banners, that's where the banners go, and you meet couples. Couples come around and you chat to them, and you can secure their date as well. Uh, and yeah, that's like where I'd normally have a QR code as well, sort of send
That's
people to
interesting.
websites. But yeah,
Yeah, I
if
think
if,
some of the
if your
best
country, yeah,
I was just gonna say, I think some of the best things is what actually you and I were talking about this, off camera yesterday. Is
mm,
the basics of stuff is like awareness, right? Like
yeah,
you're trying to do a business when people are aware that you exist, because people are this is gonna happen. Like your family's gonna get together, for example, and they're gonna go, we got a really important birthday coming up, or oh, we got a family reunion, or oh, we got this Christmas party. Man, what can we do that's fun? Oh, we can get a cornhole set. But if they know they saw Rooster do this crazy thing in their hands at this
mm,
random restaurant or festival or wedding
mm.
fair thing or whatever, they can remember that and go, "Oh, do we have his card? Where's that card? Oh, yeah, let's contact that guy." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. And I mean that's where things, because like business cards can be they can go in and out of style a little bit. They can suddenly become a little bit more obsolete, and they can become a little bit in. Like people will take a business card, leave it in their wallet, and it will be in there for a year, right?
mhm,
And it'll be all dog-eared and torn up, or they might just take it and bin it, right? There's no guarantee to them keeping that information, but um, that's why stuff like social media is good, because you can point people and get them to follow you straight away, right? Especially with Instagram, you just tap one button and that person's on your radar, right?
mhm,
And they have to make a conscious decision to unfollow you if they don't want to. So
right.
um, it's yeah, it's that sort of thing that then allows you to build uh, a client base, right? It's word of mouth and getting out there and just doing it. So yeah, try it. Like if you're watching this and you're thinking, can I go pro? Should I go pro? Just listen to have a look back through this, but just try it. Just give it a go. There's nothing wrong with going out there and failing and then going back again and redoing it. Just go out
Mhm,
there and try it.
yep.
And that
There's a
doesn't mean give up your daytime job.
right.
Okay, that doesn't mean quit what you're doing and doing it. As soon as you get into the bigger venues, as soon as you getting paid the bigger bucks, you're still doing a professional job. You're still a professional entertainer, even if you are working, doing whatever else you're doing as well. So
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's a good point, that's a good point. Well, hopefully, we gave everybody here some, really good ideas and suggestions here for thoughts about going pro. If you have any additional questions, feel free to put those in the comments after this video, but thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Rooster, and, we will
anytime.
look forward to seeing you guys next week.